Hi, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes, and it's the girls tonight. We are here with Coy Malone, our social justice activist, and as soon as we can get things going, we will have famed attorney CK Hoffler joining us as well. Coy Malone, how are you?
I am doing pretty good in the world of adulting. It has been a challenge, especially over the last few weeks where I've been working like, shoot, three jobs really to count.
Hmm.
And what I've learned through that process is sometimes you have to do what is necessary to get certain things done, especially financially. If you have a financial goal, if you have things that just require a lot more finances than what you have access to. What I've learned through that process is to definitely pace yourself. Oh my gosh. That's the only way that I got through it. And I'm glad to see some progress going on because I do have adjustments coming up in my schedule, which means I can get more sleep than what I've been getting and actually the amount of sleep I deserve to have.
Well, I wonder what that means. The amount of sleep you deserve to have, the amount of sleep you require.
Yes.
Okay. Attorney CK Hoffler is joining us, and I don't know if she can hear us right now. CK,
I can hear
hi.
you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
it's a little low, and Chica, you may have to talk her through this.
Okay.
Your audio is a little low. So, and as we work through that, I will continue with Coy. Coy, what does that look like? The amount of sleep you deserve to have, as opposed to what you need.
Well, the amount of sleep I deserve to have should be enough for me to feel rested and able to take on the day.
So, isn't
And
that what you require?
yes, it
Okay.
is,
So
but I
it's
don't
just
know.
semantics. Okay.
It
All right.
is, but sometimes I deserve to have 12 hours of sleep.
Because you require 12 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think we just have, because what I find with young people is that, what they deserve as opposed to what they require. I think that's the difference in what we're talking about here. I
Hmm.
I don't know that I deserve 12 hours of sleep. I don't even know that I deserve 6 hours of sleep. I just know that I get more about 4 or 5.
Oof, it's kind of rough sometimes, but doable.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's just a matter of semantics there. But I do think that your generation does talk about deserving more than that kind of thing, right?
We do.
Than 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 requiring.
We do because we're putting in a lot of work. I feel
Well,
like
we
there's,
all are, but see, that's the point.
yeah.
We all are putting in a lot of work. So I think that what you think you deserve, it just sounds like it sounds very pretentious. It sounds like, well, I need this and I require this, and it doesn't sound, um cuz life isn't fair. What you deserve is not necessarily what you're going to get. And I think that's what you're finding. And she goes out.
But we definitely do. We deserve it. Everything is like everything is a lot more expensive these days. Housing prices are going up. With my generation, we're not going to be able to afford homes like the generations before us. We have to
No,
put in
before
twice as
you
much
and
work.
before you
Yeah.
and before you. We all
Mm-mm.
have that challenge.
But it's even more now.
Okay,
Jobs aren't
it's
paying as
okay.
much.
Koi.
Mm-mm.
Okay, we're gonna agree to disagree on this, because what you are facing is what the generation before you has faced, and before that. It's just and inflation being what it is, it was as expensive previously as it is now.
I
It
guess
just
we feel
doesn't
like
seem that.
our generation feels like why should each generation keep having to face challenges like this and having to overwork themselves? Let's be the first one to kind of make changes to this instead of everybody struggling.
Okay, so what are you gonna do about it as a social justice activist?
First of all, kind of help everybody understand their rights as a worker if you do decide to work for an employer, and your rights if you decide to work independently, whether it's as a contractor or starting your own
So, as
business.
a social justice
Mhm.
activist, what are you going to do?
That educate, that's a part of it.
Okay.
People don't
Okay.
understand that they have rights. I've talked to people that don't understand there are certain things that jobs are required to do for their employers. A lot of people in my generation just don't know about. They have no clue. They're just out here working every day, clocking in and thinking that's all I can do.
Okay. All right. So how you doing on the educating part? Hello? Okay. I guess we'll move on. CK Hoffler, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just a little low, but we will definitely. Um,
Do you want me to I will speak up as loudly as I can.
oh, you sound like you're in court.
Okay. Okay.
So CK, thank you so much for joining Coy and me. And as I said, it's the girls or the women, if you will, today. And CK Hoffler is our attorney of record here on It's Sybil, and a woman who has been just such a tremendous help in kind of navigating us through some of the legal issues that we have had in the news over the last couple of years. And CK, you are here to talk about something today in an organization that you are with. And we'll talk about that in the What's Really Going On section. I'd like to talk to you a little bit, both of you, about what's topical. And the latest today is we're getting closer to a war in Europe with Russia. President Biden plans to impose sanctions targeting two Russia backed breakaway republics in eastern Ukraine in response to the Russian president uh, Putin's decision to recognize the regions as independent. So he is recognizing the regions as independent, and that means he is moving closer into his invasion of Ukraine. How much sense does this make, CK? Well, we're trying to make sense out of Vladimir
Well, it
Putin.
doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, flat out, the president of Russia wants to invade the Ukraine, and that's what he's going to do, one way or the other. Every United States president has a war of some war, because war does a few things for the economy. It
Hmm.
helps big business. It helps big industry. A lot of people profit from war. So this is the war for President Biden. It might be one, he might have another war coming up, but this is the war. The only thing that's particularly dangerous about this war is that the other side, the adversary, could be Russia, formerly the Soviet Union, formerly this is our Cold War enemy. And a war where Russia is on the other side because of the invasion of the Ukraine has many, many nuclear ramifications. So
Hmm.
this is not just some little tiny, war here, we invade here. Let's just look at Afghanistan. Even though the Afghanistan issue was not a small issue,
Hmm.
many men and women died during the tenure in Afghanistan. But this war would take on a new dimension in terms of world wars potentially. And that's why so many world leaders have tried to weigh in, have tried to intervene, have tried to
Hmm.
prevent it, have tried to stop, have tried to impress upon our president and also the Russian president not to do this, because
Right.
the ramifications are really deadly. We're talking about the modern way of fighting a war, maybe not even necessarily with people on the ground there,
Right.
but with nuclear weapons
Right.
that could wipe out either country, that could wipe out populations in both countries, and that could really tear up the world. So this is very serious.
Coy Malone, you and your peers are you guys talking about this? Is this a
Y-
concern?
yes, it is a concern, but I'm seeing a lot more jokes with the people within my peer group.
And so the jokes that we see on social media, that kind of thing, that we see in terms of not understanding are they understanding the ramifications of oil prices and how we're going to be paying? The story I did today was about gasoline perhaps rising as much as $7 a gallon. And to heat our homes, and the cost of our food and our clothes and things are obviously they're already on the rise, but it's going to continue, right? Are you guys talking about that?
Yeah, like one of the biggest things is gas. Mostly everyone has a car that runs on gas. And to fill it up now is ridiculous. And to see the prices are going sky high, like those are the conversations we are having about that and just the prices of a lot of things in general. But there's still my generation, for some reason, likes to make.
CK, let me ask you this, in terms of the who's on whose side. How crazy is it that the Republicans are supporting Russia?
How
Donald
crazy
Trump
is
and
it?
his ilk. Yeah.
It's as crazy as former President Trump supporting Russia. It's this is we have reached a level of political lunacy in my humble impression. That's not to be believed. So it is crazy, Sybil. But the bad part about it
Hmm.
is when we do send people over there, if we have to do that, they're going to be black and brown people by and large.
Yeah.
And so we need to really, really pay very close attention to this. This is not play. This is not fun. It's not funny. I know that social media has wreaked havoc relative to this, but it's not really addressing fundamentally we're about to enter into what potentially could morph into a world war. Not to mention the fact that this country is so divided. This
Hmm.
country is so divided that literally, if President Biden says yes, the Republicans are going to say no. And the Republicans say no, the Democrats will say yes. And when it comes to a war against a super duper power like Russia, I think we can ill afford to be disjointed and to be dysfunctional as a country in terms of our politics and policies. So it's very unfortunate. I know that it's I find it to be amazing. This is the first time, at least in my lifetime, where I've seen our country so divided on issues of a war in this way.
Hmm.
There always have been people, when it came to the discussion of a war, people saying, no, I don't think we should go into Iraq. I don't think we should go into Afghanistan. We shouldn't go into Vietnam. There have always been people who have felt that way. But this is very different. The divisiveness that we see now is analogous to the divisiveness that we see or have seen or saw on January 6th
Hmm.
when there was an attempted coup d'etat.
Right.
So it's in that spirit. And so that's why it concerns me more, because it's not really the legitimate arguments that some people make about, well, we shouldn't go into this war, we shouldn't go into that war. It cuts down the lines sometimes of racial lines,
Yeah.
conservative lines, and just as we see those who feel that there's no reason to investigate the events that happened on January 6th, those same forces are in support of the Russian president
This is
against the
crazy.
president of the United States.
This is
So that's what
crazy.
I think is just unbelievable.
Right. Coy, you're from a military family. What are your thoughts on the possible incursion of war and that sort of thing? I'm just wondering what military people are. CK, what about you? Are you from a military family?
I'm not from a military family, but actually, I have, well, let me say that. My father, my late father in law, um, my late father-in-law, and my stepfather all served in the military. So I should stop saying I'm not from a
Yeah,
military family,
for
because
sure.
my uncles, I mean, everybody. But when I think of a military family, I
Hmm.
think of me personally. I was not a
Right.
military brat. I didn't go. I did travel around the world, but it was not for military service.
Right.
So because my family's in military service, but many people in my family have served this country honorably,
Right.
whether they were serving on the front lines or serving as doctors. So I think that I consider myself just someone who believes very strongly in the service that men and women pay and do for this country, and
Yeah.
they protect our way of living. But as I said a few minutes ago, Sybil, the people that will be going on the front lines, if there
It.
will be a front lines, are black and brown people. So
Yeah.
we really do need to be concerned. I am curious as to those people who are rank and file military. I want to say
Hmm.
rank and file, I don't mean no disrespect, but where we have mothers and fathers and
Yes.
sons who are going to be engaged in a war, if there is a war, how they feel about it.
Yeah.
I'm one step removed from it, but I can tell you it makes me feel very anxious. And it also makes me feel anxious because I have two teenage boys. And
Hmm.
if a draft is imposed, I mean, that's where people who have younger children should be concerned.
Right. Yeah, and we don't talk about the draft anymore, but definitely, certainly, one of your sons has had to go sign up for selective service, right? He's had to register, right?
Well, he's not, he might have to,
Oh,
because he,
I thought that I was thinking at 18.
well, I'll put it this way. There is that. and my second one is about to be 18. So I've one that's 19 and one that is 17.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel some kind of way about that.
Sure.
But, for me, that's amorphous.
Hmm.
That's amorphous. Like I'm just sitting here saying, well, that's, but it's really not amorphous.
Right. Right.
And that's what we're inching closer to. And so a lot of families, black and brown and other families, quite frankly, if these children have to serve involuntarily, there's going to be a whole different discussion, whole different
Yeah.
dialogue.
We're
Flight to
talking.
Canada, if Canada allows us to come in, because right now,
How
there's still
crazy
issues
is
with
it in
Canada.
Canada? How crazy is it in Canada? And it's like a lot of the crazies from down here have gone up there and now are spouting off nonsense. And I've never heard Canadians use language the way they are on the roads and the streets of Ontario and what have you. So it's bananas. Let's talk about something. Let's go from the ridiculous to even more ridiculous. Um, because if we're paying more for a lot of our things as inflation and the possibility of war increases, how about this? Family Dollar Store has issued a voluntary recall of their FDA regulated products in 6 states, including drugs, cosmetics, and foods. And it's due to the presence of rats and rodent activity at a Family Dollar distribution center in Arkansas. A number of health hazards associated with rodents, including the presence of salmonella. Use or consumption of affected products may increase the risk of illness due to the presence of salmonella. And so we've heard of salmonella. To date, Family Dollar is not aware of any consumer complaints, but this includes drugs, medical devices, cosmetics, dietary supplements, and human and animal pet food products. It does not apply to certain products, but 400 stores to which this recall applies are listed, and the recall does, and this is 400 stores in a number of states that have been closed as a result of this rodent infestation in the Arkansas warehouse. This is dangerous, and now people are running to stores like this because the prices are so crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, Family Dollar is a very, very popular store. It was a popular store, say, pre-COVID,
Yeah,
but
for
it
sure.
became exceptionally popular during COVID as people are more popular, as people lost their jobs, as they couldn't afford to go to Walmart or Target or regular grocery stores. They knew they could go to Family Dollar. And while maybe there was some compromise on the size of what you were getting because the
Hmm.
portions are smaller, people could afford to go to Family Dollar. It became, I think Family Dollar was making profits hand over fist
Yeah.
because of that. And now with the rising gas prices, and Family Dollar, a lot of times the stores are located in communities where some people could walk to Family Dollar. So with gas prices rising, with all of the difficulties associated with COVID, because we're still in a pandemic. I mean, I know people like to believe it's over. I was in Texas not too long ago, and I was looking for masks. People
Yeah.
to wear masks. In some places, people really believe that COVID never existed. There was no such thing. It was a hoax, and they don't need to wear masks still.
Hmm.
So, um, fam, this is going to be devastating for the economy, quite frankly, for those people who rely on Family Dollar, who have come to rely on Family Dollar. And I will say this: people don't need to look down
Mm-mm.
or kind of put their noses in the air, because a whole lot of people in the parking lot of Family Dollar are driving luxury vehicles.
Yep.
Let me just say that.
Yep. That is
So,
for sure. It's gonna have a profound effect on business and closing 400 stores in a number of states. That's not only affecting the consumer, but definitely we're talking about people who are working very hard as employees of Family Dollar and what will
absolutely.
happen to them. CK, we're gonna take a turn because I want to talk about this incredible organization that you are a part of as we are getting close to the announcement of our first Black female Supreme Court justice. I'm hearing that it's going to happen any day now. So this is going to be a part of our what's really going on discussion as we are getting very close to, if it hasn't happened already, and we just haven't gotten the word.
Word.
Um, but you are a part of an organization and a number of Black women's groups that are there to well, as the headline says, advocacy groups are you're laying the groundwork to boost the forthcoming nomination and to fend off Republican attacks against her. What's the name of your organization?
Well, I'm the chair of the board of Rainbow Push Coalition. I'm also involved with Win with Black Women. I'm the immediate past president of the National Bar
Right.
Association. I'm a
So you
member
wear a
of,
number of hats in
I
this
wear
whole
a number of
discussion.
hats. And this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons. One, because it's about time. I mean, how
Hmm.
in the history of the U.S. Supreme Court was there not an African American woman to sit on that court?
Right.
That's to me something that's inexplicable. Let me just put
Hmm.
it that way. But secondly, the type of scrutiny and discussion surrounding these phenomenally, eminently qualified candidates is also unbelievable, but not surprising because we have to remember there was, after all, an attempted coup d'etat on January 6th. There was an insurrection which had racial animus surrounding all of that. And,
Hmm.
there's a skit that I'm sure you've seen where they've got, President Bush saying, "Oh, I'm going to nominate a woman." Everybody's like, "Yes, yes."
Hmm.
Then you've got President Reagan saying, "I'm going to nominate a woman." "Oh, yes." And then you've got President Biden saying, "I'm going to nominate a Black woman." And you have the Republicans saying, "What?
Right.
No, boo." So
Right.
literally, the biggest issue here, as we know,
Yeah.
is race.
Yep.
And it makes sense in the context of this country. It makes no sense in the context of the struggle that we fought. So many organizations are positioning themselves to ensure
Hmm.
that they ward off, neutralize, and leverage their influence so that the Republicans will not have a stronghold and block this U.S. Supreme Court justice, who is going to be an African American woman. We need to claim it every day. We don't need to say, "Well, it might, maybe could." It's going to be. And part of it going to be attitude is us claiming it and
Right.
saying we refuse to be denied. Enough is enough. I mean, because if I have to go down all the things that we're waiting to happen that haven't happened, and this is not President Biden's fault. I'm not putting this at the feet of President Biden
Sure.
that we don't have federal voting rights legislation,
Hmm.
that we don't have a George Floyd Justice and Policing Act or policing reform or criminal justice reform, that we don't have many of the things, immigration reform and many of the things that are very important to Black and brown people and progressive people in this country, the people that elected the president. These things are very, very important. But this promise that he made, and he came up with this promise
Hmm.
that he made to put to have the next justice on the U.S. Supreme Court be an African American woman. He's going to make good on that promise, and he needs the support of every single organization, progressive and otherwise. And the three leading candidates, at least two of them, have already had some Republican support because they're already in the federal system
Right.
and they already had to go through a confirmation process. So this is a very, very important time in our history, but we should not let up. We should intensify our efforts. And that's what you're seeing, Sybil, happening with these organizations. They're saying enough is enough. You better not even think of not to, this is sort of thrust, of not supporting any one of these eminently qualified leaders and candidates that could run circles around the existing justices. I mean,
Right.
that's what we have to understand. They are eminently, supremely, extraordinarily, any words you want to use to say, very, 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 very qualified
Right.
on all levels. So, and don't allow me to compare some of the sitting U.S. Supreme Court justices, some of the recent
Hmm.
appointees, because
Hmm.
I don't want to go into that very non-productive direction. I think it's
Right.
I suggest that we stay uplifted by the
Hmm.
eminently qualified Black women, every single one, every name that has been put forth. I've known many of them personally or vetted them when I was president of the National Bar Association.
Hmm.
Why? Because we were pushing diverse candidates to be
Right.
on the federal bench, to be elevated within the federal system. So there are no surprises here.
Yeah.
There are no surprises.
Coy, are you excited by the possibility of what's going to happen with the nomination of a black woman to be the next justice of the U.S. Supreme Court?
Oh, yes, definitely, because that is going to be another first that we need to see. Black women are very, very strong. I feel like they deserve to be in a lot more positions of leadership than what we have been. And, it's great that we're living in a time now where that chance is coming to light. So thank you, President Biden, for recognizing that in Black women and that type of strength that we have. It's time for one of us to sit as a Supreme Court justice and keep that job.
Yeah, and keep yeah, exactly, sitting there on the Supreme Court. And CK, is it fair to ask you if you have a justice in this race?
Well, I don't want to identify one in particular,
Okay.
but we did endorse Michelle Child. She's a National Bar Association member, a member of the Judicial Council.
Hmm.
We did also support Ketanji Brown Jackson, and as many people supported her. And I certainly think that Leandra Kruger would be great. So all three of them, of the top contenders, things can change
Yeah.
any minute. It could be somebody
Yeah.
else. And I could name at least 50 off the top of my head that would have been phenomenal.
So,
But
how
all three of the
crazy
top,
is it, CK, when you think about the fact that growing up as children, we were told you have to run twice as fast and jump three times as high, and you have to be, you have to get up earlier in the morning in order to just to be on an even playing field. And
yes,
now, some of the criticisms about some of the women is their pedigree, the fact that that they went to Harvard or they went to Yale. Well, yeah, because they're brilliant women and they were accepted and they have flourished as a result of that. Well, we'd like to see somebody who's not in that Harvard Yale pipeline. This is not, you're just looking for stuff, right?
well, this is the thing. This is what I will say. We know that Thurgood Marshall didn't go to Harvard or Yale. He went to Howard.
Right,
And we
which
know
is
that
the Harvard of,
right.
yeah.
And so we don't need, and there's some people on the Supreme Court that didn't go to Ivy League schools as well.
But
But
it's never an issue the way that,
it's never an issue. But this is what I will say. Michelle Childs didn't go to an Ivy League school. She is just as qualified as the other candidates. It's time for us to start looking at other things. I don't criticize anyone for excellence.
hmm.
Are you kidding me? You don't want to criticize people for being excellent, for achieving and getting into schools, even if you didn't get into those schools.
Hmm.
I just don't think there should just be one type of candidate. And what all three of these women represent is that there's not just one type of candidate, because you can have the academic pedigree, but there's one thing that distinguishes you, and
Hmm.
that's that you're a Black woman. So, how about that? So,
Okay.
from my standpoint, there are no losers in this unless it doesn't come to fruition.
Hmm.
But I'm claiming the victory because there should be a victory. And for those who are naysayers, I say shame on them. Support this. And I think that's what we have to do.
Right.
We have, just as we support other initiatives, we need to support these eminently qualified leaders. And let me tell you why. There's some people say, well, it's not going to make a difference. I was like, well, I don't know what country you're living in. Of course it's going to make a difference.
Right.
Of course it's going to make a difference. It's going to make a difference because even though the progressives would be in the minority,
Still, yeah.
when you are on the U.S. Supreme Court, you reach across the aisle. You actually do engage in dialogue. We
Hmm.
know historically that there have been conversations back and forth, and it's reflected in the opinions on one side or the other.
And that's what Stephen Breyer was famous or still is famous for, is being one of those people.
Right. And what you need is someone who has strong leadership. And each of these three women would be
Really
strong
strong.
leaders, have the ability, the credibility, the background, the insight, the experience to be able to be in that position. And 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 as I said, I could rattle off about 50 other women too, African American
I,
women.
I I could name one just off the top of my head, and that would be CK Hoffler.
Uh,
Um,
no, no, I just love you, Sybil, because of your support. But that's not on my bucket list. I prefer to elevate others who
I'm with
I
you. I
believe
I get
would,
that.
would really, really, really do a magnificent job, because I think my calling is to elevate others,
Hmm.
not to be in that position.
I'm with you.
And so everybody has a different calling, and I want to do that. I want to be in all places, and I don't want to be in that one position, although it's
Yeah.
the top of our profession, it's the top of the line. It is what if you when you go to law school, there is no higher honor,
Right.
but we don't all aspire to be judges and
So
to
there
be
was never a moment, even as a little girl, and you thought about becoming an attorney, that you said, "Wow, I could," like Michael from Good Times, being the,
right.
a Supreme Court
Well,
justice.
I will say this: I always aspired to be at the top, whatever the top was.
Gotcha.
So that was my aspiration.
Gotcha.
Just be at the top, do the best that I could. That's really where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep
You're
on
there.
plugging away, be at the top, because it's never an easy journey for us. So
Correct.
that's why when I see these women who are already in these positions in the federal circuit, on the US, on the Supreme Court of California, young women, everybody's young. As we get older, everybody becomes very young.
Right.
Pretty soon I'll be calling them toddlers and everything. But young, because of my age, but young, qualified, extraordinary women who have distinguished themselves in our profession
Mm-hmm.
and who have background, quite frankly, that we need on the Supreme Court. We don't need to talk about Clarence Thomas. Let's not talk about that, because he is the most conservative U.S. Supreme Court justice, I want to say, that has ever existed, but
Mm-hmm.
certainly that exists now on the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right.
So we don't need to look at, well, black, because that he's a perfect example of how you can't always say, oh, we just need an African American.
Mm-hmm.
We need to know the backgrounds of the candidates, the positions they've taken, what their insight is. That's very, very, very important. Very important. And each of the top runners, the front runners, are bad to the bone, exceptional, extraordinary, and would be great leaders on issues of importance to our communities, to all communities, but particularly to communities that are underrepresented, who never have a voice and who haven't been present since Thurgood Marshall, not in a meaningful way. Of course, we've had some magnificent justices,
Sure.
you know, Justice Ginsburg was magnificent. A lot of magnificent justices. Justice Breyer, I mean, he is a magnificent justice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And others. But right now, we need the kind of leadership that these women would bring. Period. End of discussion. It really just is
So,
that.
Coy, I don't know. Do you join me? Because this is where it's really where I get back on my soapbox and talk about the importance of voting, and especially as we are getting in the state of Texas, we're already early voting, and then the other midterm primaries will begin in a matter of months. But this is really important where we get people out there and get them registered to vote, CK and Coy, because we know that we're at a 50-50 Senate. And actually it's in some cases it's 52-48 or even more on the other side. And so it's really important that we talk about it's important that we talk about the importance of registering to vote and getting people out to vote. And I will tell you why. Just in going out with a friend of mine who is running for a state office, a state house position, and seeing how people are not historically they have not been a part of the whole voting thing in midterm elections. But Coy, it's really kind of sad that we were at one of the biggest community centers on Saturday, and all of the activity there was for basketball, soccer games, and baby showers,
Yeah.
and it was just a handful of people seemingly all day. The polls were open until 7, and they it was a disappointing day all the way around, just for this one district.
Yeah, people feel like if it doesn't directly affect them in some kind of way, like if they don't walk outside their door and they see this issue happening, or the issue hasn't occurred inside their home to the point where they have to get out and speak about it on the news or speak about it on social media, they just don't care. This generation and just the world that we have created now out of social media is a lot more interactive, and people feel like, well, if I can't see it, if it's not directly affecting somebody that I know, then it's just out of sight, out of mind. And that's kind of
Hmm.
the reason why the whole campaign with Get Your Booty to the Poll was created. It was created to engage an audience that is just out of sight, out of mind when it comes down to politicians giving out their reasons of why should be voted for. And it also helps to grasp the attention of people that just don't think about politics, that don't understand it or don't care for it, and think that it doesn't affect them. So
Right.
maybe it will possibly take another creative ad like Get Your Booty to the Poll to engage people that just don't care about politics. I feel like it doesn't affect them because it surely does.
And CK, do you think that the school boards and the changes that are taking place and the ridiculous conversations about critical race theory and that being taught in our schools and taking books out of the library, do you think this is going to engage our people to get more involved in local politics?
It should engage our people to get more involved in local politics. Unfortunately, I think there's a certain amount of apathy. I think there are a lot of people that are they're just tired. They feel as though, and again, I'm not casting aspersions on the president, but they feel that he has not lived
Mhm.
up to the promises to our community, and they expected more. I think it was a crushing blow when there wasn't the passage of the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
Well, the president didn't control that. We have some senators that that just is what it is. And the whole idea behind modifying the filibuster, that whole discussion, Sybil, that we've had on your show,
Mhm.
um just how we can, as Senator Raphael Warnock said, my senator, we
Okay.
know how to modify it when we want to modify it.
Right.
I
Right.
mean, when we want to do it, we know how to do it. But so that was a crushing blow. The failed passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, really not getting off first base. That also was something that was a crushing blow. And people feel that a sense of helplessness and hopelessness because voting and police brutality are the
Mhm.
two biggest issues of social justice in Black and brown communities and progressive communities. So I think there's a sense of apathy, like, okay, we went out, we voted during COVID,
Mhm.
stayed in lines, did all of this, and yet none of or the big ticket items really have not come to fruition for our communities. So I think there's a certain amount of apathy. And then you throw on there this whole, what I think is an unbelievably ridiculous discussion about critical race theory and
Mhm.
taking books out of libraries and not being able to teach. You can't teach about things that are part of history
Right.
in this country. That creates another dose and another level of apathy. And then when you see the voter suppression that's happening, we don't have federal
Yeah.
voter legislation, but you've got voter suppression. Can't give out water, can't do this, have to have a passport in
Right.
some jurisdictions to vote. All of these things. Now the president has passed an executive order or two, but there need to be executive orders after executive orders after executive orders
Right.
in the cut, because
Right.
there is something funding for organizations that are registering voters. There are a lot of things that the federal government can do that the president can pass through executive orders that can help soften the blow, that could help the states to do things. And so I think there needs to be a concerted effort on that. But we're about to enter into a war. So
Yeah.
when there's a war, everybody starts focusing on the war. So Sybil, to answer your question, I think there's just a lot of apathy. There's a lot
Mhm.
of frustration. People can't even afford to eat. They can't afford to send their kids to school. If kids stay home from school, they don't have the internet, so they can't learn. They're already behind. And these are the challenges that we're having in our community on a huge level. And so the only way you can bring about change is really the power of your vote and people registering to vote. But if you're in a rural community and you don't have access to the internet,
Right.
you're not sure of your status of your registration, and you can't register to vote because you don't have access. You can't afford the transportation costs because you can't afford the gas. You don't have the money because you lost your job. There's so many things going on right now that this country, I think, is in a perpetual state of PTSD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do we need to talk? Oh my goodness, Sybil, I don't even know if I should raise this right now about the sentence of Kim Potter for killing
So
Dante
okay.
Wright.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean,
So
was that a real?
I'm gonna ask you. I want to know about your time. Can you stick with us?
I could stick for a little bit longer because see now
Okay.
I just sent a little text, and that's what I was doing.
Okay.
Send a little text to see if I can just push back my next commitment, because this
Okay.
is. I
Okay.
always want to give you as much time as you would like,
Well,
because I just love you, Sybil, and
well,
Coy,
she
I
was
love
on
you
my
too.
list. I got binders of questions for you,
Yes,
CK.
yes. Oh my
But
goodness.
I want to talk about the What You Need to Know newsletter, and that was a part of the discussion because this week we are honoring the memory of Trayvon Martin. And I'm very proud of this, that we are taking the initiative in order to pay homage to Trayvon, his memory, and to his parents, and that those that have stepped up to create change in our society. And so we started with the newsletter and just gave a general overview of what happened on February 26, 2012 in George Zimmerman. So we're going to talk about that trial, but Coy, I want you to start with, because I want to start with some good news. And you have a great story about a young social justice activist, a young girl who took a stand and with the help of her mother and others, was able to withstand the pressure against her.
Yes, this is in Duluth, Minnesota. A sixth grader named Lady Gianna, I believe that's how you pronounce her name, was speaking with her mother about the recent police shooting and killing of Amir Locke. She decided to iron on the words Black Lives Matter on her swimsuit and wear it to her swim meet. There was an official there that said that, oh, this goes against the logo standards for the YMCA, so now you're disqualified from participating in the meet. So it took for her mother, who is a diversity officer at Lake Superior College, to call the local NAACP chapter or president of the chapter in Duluth, Minnesota, who contacted media, local media, and other persons who are affiliated with different advocate groups. All these people showed up at the meet, which caused the YMCA vice president to show up as well and reverse the decision. And this took about 10 minutes for this to go on. So, mom was wrapping it up. She also gave her daughter the decision to decide, hey, do you want to change your bathing suit or do you want to keep it on? And she said, no, my daughter, she was going to keep it on. She decided to wear it. So one of the disappointing things about this was, outside of the fact that this child was the only Black child there at the entire competition, people were coming up to give them, apologies for, oh, I'm so sorry that you're going through this, and we stand by you. But nobody stood up and said anything on this child's behalf until the decision was reversed. Nobody stood up and advocated for her. Nobody, sided with her or anything like that. The official was removed from the competition and barred from participating
She's
in
a
any activities.
volunteer.
Yeah, it was a volunteer. And the YMCA did speak out and say that this wasn't even an approved event by, the YMCA. So, these regulations and standards shouldn't have been an issue, even though they do have a standard where you can only wear like the club's name or the group's name on your bathing suit, and that's
Well,
it.
she was representing Black Lives Matter organization.
Yep. Hey, and that's a Christian association, so
Yeah.
they are, open and loving and accepting of a lot of different groups and what have you, including diversity. So I could see why the decision was reversed, but it shouldn't have taken all of that, to be honest.
Attorney CK Hoffler, what do you think about the young Coy Malone, or I dare say the young Jacqueline Jackson, that stood up and made her voice and her thoughts known about this in the form of her swimsuit attire at the swim meet?
Well, I think that was magnificent. And by the way, there were many of us applauding, supporting, yelling, screaming, yes, yes, yes. Her mother, she and her mother, I first learned about it when I saw them on TV. And when I called the people who are, kind of in that area, because it's the same group of people who are focused on the litigation there are there in the area. The same social justice people who are in the trenches. And they felt that it was being handled exceptionally well, and there wasn't a need, unless wasn't reversed at that moment, for national pressure. So I think it's magnificent. I think there are a lot of those success stories we just don't hear about.
Right.
We don't hear about them because, frankly, a lot of people don't think that's newsworthy. It's very newsworthy because it's very important for our young kids to feel that they are important.
Yes.
The key was that this young child felt that she didn't matter, that it was not important. She felt like the other. She felt disgraced. She felt humiliated. She felt ostracized. And she was already probably feeling that way based on the demographics of the competition. But this just reinforced for her a feeling of you don't matter, you have no value. And when you grow up and feel you have no value, and that is reinforced, that's a message that's reinforced day in and day out, eventually you might believe you have no value.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you believe you have no value, then your actions reflect the fact that you have no value because people are telling you that day in and day out. That's the cycle we have to reverse. So this is an extraordinary story. One success story at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I applaud her. I just thought it was magnificent. And when I saw her mother on TV with her, a lot of times you see lawyers. I love that they didn't have lawyers, just mother and daughter speaking their truth
That's
and
right.
making an impact, because that should tell us you can make a difference.
Yeah.
You can make a difference. There's not going to be a change, really, a dramatic change of us being in those environments. People in London were getting arrested for saying Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now that's kind of, it's not as bad as it was. But in the beginning, they were being arrested for
Yeah.
merely saying, forget prostate, saying Black Lives
Yeah.
Matter.
Yeah.
So, we have come a long way. And so we hear these success stories, we should applaud them, but recognize that our struggle is real and it needs to continue. And we need to continue to push and support our children. And it's not that we shouldn't support grown folks, but our children are our future. It's a
Yeah.
cliche, but they really are. And getting them to feel loved, it's so important. That's why, on so many levels, I've commented on this U.S. Supreme Court justice being an African American woman. Why is that important? Well, it's important for Black girls to see themselves in the highest level. We need to claim it and own it and say it.
That's right.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's important for Black boys to see
Yep.
someone in the image of their mother on the highest court in the land, of their grandmother, of their auntie, of their godmother, of the teacher that they love.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these, and why not? That's what it is to other groups of people. So
Why
it
not?
should be that for them. And so I don't think that we should be apologetic about that. And we had this little competition with these young 5 and 6-year-olds were competing, and one of the topics was unapologetically me.
Mm-hmm.
Little 5-year-olds talking about being unapologetically me, little Black children, Black girls. And they talked about what it would mean to have a U.S. Supreme Court justice who looked like them, an African American woman. So it's important.
So let's go to the Trayvon Martin case and the
Yes.
and our support and our dedication this week. And as I started out in the original story talking about what happened on that day and how his mother and father brought about a whole new generation of
Mhm.
people in trying to get answers and to make sure that as parents were having their conversation, having it, I was thinking about this morning after I'd written the story, having the conversation with Sabrina Fulton about did she have to have the Trayvon conversation with Trayvon that other parents had to have later on,
Mhm.
and but the strength and the perseverance of this family in advance of Black Lives Matter
Yeah,
and representing as a strong unified family in order to make a difference in the lives of other people, especially as their son is gone.
is gone. Can I just jump in real quick, Coy, just to say one thing right quick? Because I hate to dominate this part of the conversation. But if you think about it, there would not have been an Ahmaud Arbery but for Trayvon Martin.
Right?
The only difference between those cases, one was on videotape and
Yep.
the other one wasn't.
Yep.
How about this? The same civil attorney, Ben Crump, my brother, my
Yes.
former past president of the National Bar Association, lawyer extraordinaire, Ben Crump was on both.
Yep.
And so the biggest difference, video versus no video. Trayvon Martin accentuated and underscored the fact that we need to have a record. There needs to be video evidence, because let's think of how different that trial could have been. The outcome could have been
Yeah.
if there had just been a video of that somewhere. In the and developments have videos. I live in a development. There are videos everywhere, cameras everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
that things could be captured on video. And so I really believe, in terms of social justice, in terms of civil rights, in terms of the applicability of stand your ground, self-defense, defenses, and all of that, Trayvon Martin showed us how
Yeah.
ludicrous those defenses were, because a lot of people didn't know there was such a thing as stand your ground. They
Right.
didn't know you can go someplace and someone looks at you as a threat and thought that you were going to threaten, shooting, killing them because you put your hand in your pocket to get some bubble gum and they thought you were going to kill them. And then they shot you because they felt threatened. And in Florida, they were standing their ground. In Georgia, they were standing their ground. They were operating in self-defense. These are laws on the books.
Yes.
A lot of people didn't understand that. And it's more than just in Florida and Georgia.
Right. It is. And Coy, just talking about the videotape and having, the recorded information, let's move to the Kim Potter case, because a lot of people were extremely disappointed in the outcome, in the sentencing of
including me.
Okay. Hello. Including Coy and me. But 2 years, or actually 16 months, and then what happens then? And having a mother and a father stand up and try to get justice for their child, and we saw how it happened. And yet, and the attorneys came in, CK Hoffler, and they told her what they wanted her to get, and what she deserved to get. And the judge disregarded all of that, and in tears in her eyes, gave her 16 months in prison, 8 months outside. And this woman goes and she takes her picture with the brightest, widest smile you
I bet
possibly
she
have.
was smiling. I bet she was smiling.
She was.
Because let me just say this. I got a wake-up call. She's not going to serve 16 months. She's going to serve 6 or 7 months. This is one of the greater travesties that we will have seen. I bet she was smiling, because that jury said in a resounding way, you are guilty of first and second degree manslaughter. And by the verdict, the jury and the findings, the jury said you are guilty. And there was enough evidence there to ask for the maximum penalty and to look at the aggravating factors. The judge, even though the prosecutors backed off of the aggravating factors, the judge had the complete discretion to consider that. This judge was up there crying and saying she just made a little mistake, a boo-boo. That Kim Potter made a mistake. It's just the saddest thing. And I have to tell you, I fundamentally, profoundly respect judges. I really do. I said before, they're at the top of our profession. But I have the right to disagree. And as an officer of the court, I vehemently disagreed. I was so disappointed. Sybil and Coy, I was in the middle of doing legal commentary on the case because I had reviewed several cases at the time, and the sentencing came down. That was what I was covering. And I have to tell you, it did take a moment. I had to just go into prayer, if you know what I mean. For me, in a national and international forum, to just say how disappointed I was and to choose my words very carefully. But I did choose my words very carefully. I said exactly what I said now. I do respect judges and the full discretion and blah, 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 blah. But I'm very disappointed because when I was asked before, what should the judge do? I said the judge should go upwards of the guidelines because of how serious the crime was, even though it wasn't murder. It considered murder, first degree, second degree manslaughter. That was what I thought the judge should do. I did say, I don't think this judge will do that, but I think that's what she should do because she's more of the middle of the road type of a judge. But a middle of the road is 7 years.
Right. Right.
For 15.
7 times 12. I mean, that's the middle. 7 times 12. Coy, you're young. Whatever.
It's 84 years.
84 months.
84 months. Okay.
That's. You see, that's what I was thinking that she should do. Did I think she was going to do it? I certainly didn't think she was going to say 24 months. In my wildest dreams. And when I saw the tears, I said, "Oh, she did feel the pain of Dante Wright's family." And
she didn't feel the damn pain of their family.
That would have been negative. She felt the pain and discomfort of Kim Potter.
Yeah.
She completely stood in her shoes. And the reason why I object and I have the right to speak my truth as an officer of the court, just like every other person does. I don't want people to say, "Oh, well, I'm a lawyer, I should." Oh, no. We have the right to say what we feel and to say we don't agree with the judge, and I'm going to be respectful about it. The reason why the judge started going in the province of the jury, she was talking about it was error. That's not what the jury said.
That's right.
Reckless. There was recklessness. First degree and second degree manslaughter. Not we made a boo-boo. It was just a mistake. She a good bad day. That's not what it was.
So, but we need to know. I know we can't go back on the sentencing, but
Mhm.
what can the family, what can Dante Wright's mother and father who sat there in great disbelief, what can they do now? What's their next course of action?
Well, I think their next course of action, in addition to, of course, civil charges, which I'm sure they've already filed, or if not,
Okay.
they're going to file against the police officer, and that's going to be important. But she probably has tried to shield her assets. But you know, civil charges are very important. I think another thing that can happen is they can, and I don't know the Justice Department would look at this carefully, but they can seek assistance from the Justice Department to look at additional charges being levied against Kim Potter. Number one, don't know if the Justice Department will, but that's number one. Number two, the judge. See, this is why it's so important to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So important to know
Because
who you're
she's,
voting for.
yeah.
She's been unopposed. So if they really, because what this judge, many judges may not speak out against other judges. Sometimes it's politically right. Sometimes people think attorneys shouldn't, but as I said, I have the right, I speak my truth. And I have the right as an officer of the court and as someone who's trained to say, I disagree vehemently. I'm very disappointed by this judge's decision and opinion and conduct. I've been before judges whose opinions, decisions, and conduct I was very disappointed with. And there's a very respectful way, like I'm being now, of
Mm-hmm.
articulating that
Mm-hmm.
because you must make your record. And in litigation and jurisprudence, you've got to make a record. So I don't think this is the last chapter. I know that their lawyers are more than likely exploring other options, but I've just given you a couple of options out
Yeah.
there because judges are subject to overview as well. They don't,
Right.
there is a higher authority. There's a judicial qualifications committee, for example. In some jurisdictions, it might be called something else, a judicial qualifications committee where judges, because people complain about judges, they are brought up against charges for misconduct in
Right.
one form or another. But judges do have immunity and wide latitude in most instances. Why? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people don't agree with, like if you have a bench trial, meaning the judge is the trier of fact, they may not agree with the decision of the judge. They may not agree with the sentencing. So they do have wide immunity. But if there is something that is so egregious and shocking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and if a case can be made, then they can be that people can complain about judges, and that has it's not as easy, but it can be done. So I just think that we have to learn from this
Mm-hmm.
and learn that it's not over until it's over.
Right. Right.
If I were a juror sitting there, I would literally be so angry because it takes a lot to convict anybody when you're sitting in judgment,
Mm-hmm.
law enforcement or not. So it probably took a lot for that jury to convict Kim Potter.
Yeah.
Just because convicting anyone and sending anyone to jail takes a lot.
Yeah.
And I bet they are having a moment right now, all of those jurors, because of the time that they spent doing their civic duty, serving on the jury
Yeah.
honorably, and coming up with a verdict, only to have the judge undo it.
Yeah.
And
Undo
that's
all
how I
their.
feel. That's what I feel happened.
Yeah. CK, I can't thank you enough for joining Coy and me tonight and being a part of this discussion. I love the Black girl magic and the conversation that we've had. I hope that you will come back because I know we're awaiting a decision in the Ahmaud Arbery murder of Ahmaud Arbery and the hate crimes
Right.
portion of this. And so I hope you'll come back and join us.
I will. Sybil, I just love you, love your show, love what you bring every day, all the time. And I'd be happy to come back. I think we have to say a little prayer
Mm,
when we talk about that trial for this reason. For this reason, the jury composition is more diverse.
mm-hmm.
But remember, we got a conviction from the last jury across the board, pretty much.
Right.
But the jury is more diverse. Hate crimes, it's important for that case to be tried. I'm glad that the plea didn't work. It was
Mm-hmm.
important for it to be tried. People need to see what the manifestation of hate crimes, what it means. It means that you committed a crime and the motivation
Right.
was, in this case, racial animus. There could be, but you still committed the crimes, but you were motivated by that. There was a plethora of evidence that was laid in this case. But as you know, just as part of my practice area that I've done over the years is discrimination cases. There are people who believe there's no such thing as discrimination.
Right.
And so we have to bear in mind that some people feel that way and just say a prayer for the family because it was fundamentally a hate crime.
Yeah. Absolutely. We will say that. And we're saying our prayers for you too, because you're out there fighting the good fight every day. And so we really appreciate you. Before we leave, I want to share Yogi's Jewel with everyone. You have everything it takes to get you where you are supposed to be, Coy Malone. You have everything it takes to get you where you are supposed to be. Breathe. And then let's get to it. Well, that was the part I added.
Love it. It's exhale, breathe.
That's right. Right.
And I can tell you, when the sentencing came down, I wasn't breathing for that moment. And it was just that I was on television.
Right.
I couldn't wait for a break.
Right.
I had to say a little prayer.
Well, always take that from Yolanda Starks White. Breathe.
Yes,
Just breathe. Absolutely.
Thank you, Yolanda, for that.
Thank you so much. And please let us know if there's anything we can do with She Will Rise, with Rainbow Push, all the things you're involved in. We want to be there for you and support you as well.
Absolutely.
CK Hoffler, we appreciate you.
Rise. She will rise.
That is so exciting. I'm so excited. I do. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Coy. Coy, you need some rest. Go get it.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank God. Oh, deserve rest.
Okay. Good job. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot. Aloha.